Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Wednesday, the 8th day of February 2023, Wednesday of the 5th week of the year, the 5th week in Ordinary Time. 2 weeks, a 2-week countdown until Ash Wednesday, and the proto-beginning of Lent. Remember, Lent will not begin until the first Sunday of Lent, but Ash Wednesday comes in kind of as a prep time, so we'll get to that later on. But coming to you from the parking lot of our church here, it is Wednesday, so it is Community Mass. I have it, and I think 7th grade or 8th grade, no, 7th grade, I think, has Mass today. So getting ready to put that together, put it on our church. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, right behind me, through the pine trees over there. Another beautiful morning. It will be warmer today, about 90s. No, not 90s, about 70s. 70s or so, God forbid, gotten 90s yet. 70s, so, but it's nice and cool this morning, so a little bit nice way to open up our day. As we continue in this winter period of Ordinary Time, as we come to the end of the winter period of Ordinary Time, the Genesis, we are now in the book of Genesis, and the second creation story has begun. And we have to always be careful with this second creation story because it becomes the more powerful of the creation stories, but it isn't. It lacks any kind of sense of God creating anything in progress. It just kind of all of a sudden is. And then there's the creation of man today, a human being. Not Adam. His name is not Adam. His name is not Adam. He doesn't become Adam until after he and his wife leave the garden. He is just a man. She will be a woman. And whereas God creates Hadam, which is Hebrew for many people, for many kinds of people, equal and intimate and in partnership and things like that. In Genesis 2, there is one who will then have another who will be created later on. But this man created out of the dust of the earth and the breath of God being placed into his nostrils so that he breathes, has an element of divinity within him. Genesis 2 does not say, though, he is created in the divine image, which perhaps makes it easy for this individual to be punished as we move into chapter 3. But we are in chapter 2. Know that before the man is created, God creates the world and creates a garden in this world. What about the rest of the world? Doesn't ever say. But there's at least one garden in this world, and there are two trees. I think I've mentioned this before. Always remember there are two trees. Yes, there's knowledge in good and evil, but there's also the tree of life. And the man, after he has been created and placed in this wonderful garden, is given this very foreboding and awful condition not to eat from the tree of good and evil because he will die. And that's it. And then go off, have a merry way, let everything be fine. It's always a bit problematic. In Genesis 1, God basically just says, here's this wonderful world, all you human beings who I've created, go and make something of it. Here, tend the garden and just don't eat of this tree or you'll die. And then God disappears. Nothing is ever said about that tree of life, or what that tree of life does. Does it bear fruit? We'll find out later on, and what kind of fruit it bears, etc., etc. But nothing is said of that tree of life, which is interesting. Again, always take care with this second creation story. It should not be used in many ways as the blueprint for the origins of creation. Neither of them should be used because they are both religious understandings, of things. But the first creation story of God's progression to the point of creating humanity is again always filled with goodness and love. The word goodness doesn't appear in Genesis 2. It's a garden. It has to be nice, yes, okay, but is God happy with what God has created? Is God just doing it because God has to? Always very unclear. Very interesting story, but it leaves us with this kind of foreboding. Everything is yours. Don't don't eat of this tree because if you'll do, you'll die. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. In Mark's Gospel, we have, again, the very interesting time or part in which Jesus mentions going poo. I think I've mentioned that before. Again, it isn't, this is the continuation of yesterday's gospel where it isn't a bunch of our traditions and our customs. It isn't our devotions. It isn't our prayers, et cetera, that makes us worthy, that makes us favorable in God's sight. It is basically how we act towards each other, and what we say towards each other, and how we relate, towards each other. And so it isn't about what you shouldn't eat and what you should eat, what you should do or you shouldn't do. It is never about the shoulds. It's about what actually is in your heart, what is actually, your perspective, your vision of this world, what prompts you, what gives you that initiative to do and to be in this world. If it doesn't come from goodness, if it doesn't come from that which makes us glorious, if it doesn't come from that which helps us to understand ourselves in a way that allows for life to flourish, happiness to flourish, joy to flourish, then it isn't good, and we shouldn't be doing it, and it shouldn't be part of our lives. We set up so many conditions for ourselves and about ourselves that sometimes we forget, that it's simply about loving. It's simply about life. It's simply about expressing joy and feeling joy, and knowing that we ourselves have the ability to create, that joy because of what lies within our hearts and what it is that we want to be and what it is that we want to say in this world. That allows, for us to experience the fullness of our life and the fullness of what we're called to be and do in this world. And we should never forget that. A good thing to remind us today in the gospel. And may the Lord give you his peace.